We are ready to get started with our first full teaching, week 2 of our 21 part series that we're doing over the next several months, once a week, about this character discipleship study book that our ministry has put together. It's available through our website. You can also just email us at info@fireinaction.com. We can get you a free copy so that you can dive into this as we go through this. And again, for those who are either new in their belief or who have for years sat dormant in certain areas of their life where they know God's calling them deeper to live the truth more so than just know of it and receive the truth of the gospel, this series is something that's for you. We're going to take it in a very simplistic approach, but we believe a very powerful one to make a connection with your spirit man and cause you to grow and cause you to desire to live from this place, this character of who God is. Now, the characteristics of God are not God himself, but in order for you to look like him, for you to be an imitator of him, you need to embrace the very characteristics of him. And that's what we're going to discuss from week to week to week. But we start off by asking this question: how do you know that the Bible is true? So many books have been written throughout the history of time, right? And some of those books have factual information, poetic information. There's just all different types of stories that are written. And the key thing that helps us to know that it's not some sort of fairy tale that we're reading is if the book we're reading from was written by someone who was what we call an eyewitness to circumstances. You think about the disciples. There was no actual Bible in their days. How could there be? They were walking with the one whom the Bible is generally speaking all about. So there was no Bible yet in those days. But what they witnessed and what John and Matthew would go on to write about, we can see and embrace the validity in that because they were actually eyewitnesses to what it is that Jesus was doing, the signs and wonders and miracles that were taking place right before them that were being accomplished day after day after day during his 3-year ministry towards the end of his life. So they're actual eyewitnesses. And eyewitnesses, very simply what? Someone who witnesses with their eyes. So they actually see what is taking place. That increases our ability to trust the validity of what's being shared. Because if someone sees something and shares with you what they see, you can make the choice to believe it or not believe it, but it doesn't eliminate the factual evidence of what took place because they witnessed it with their own eyes. So reading information from eyewitnesses is always key. And what we have is a book that was put together with 40 eyewitnesses to things that took place. So that's a very key point for us to embrace and to move forward with here, is that people who witness things with their eyes give validity to the information that they share with us. So we can go from Genesis to Revelation, and we can see from the Old Testament to the New Testament just different ways that things that were spoken of to come in the New Testament actually came to be. And we can see that these things were witnessed by so many individuals who saw the life of Jesus on the earth, who saw him actually go to the cross and die for us. And here's the thing. There's many, many different scientists out there, experts in their field, who all come to agreement on certain things. They all come to agreement in the fact that there was a man named Jesus who walked the earth, that this man did die on a cross. He did make the claims that he made that caused him to die on this cross. And they also agree on something else, that there's never been a body found. So whether someone chooses to trust in the validity of that now as opposed to 2,000 years ago, that's on them, but they cannot deny these facts and that these things took place. So the verse that I wanted to share with you today, Isaiah 40 verse 8, simply says this: the grass withers and the flowers fade, but the word of God stands forever. I know we live in a time now where, because the Bible has been around for so many generations and generations and generations, much like with other books, people start to question whether or not the information is still accurate and still viable to life here on earth today. And the answer is yes, and that verse proves it. Because if his word stood for something then, guess what? It still stands for something now, because the word itself says that it stands forever. It's unchanged. It has as much power now as it did then, and it stands forever, and it will always be what it is. And here's the thing, you think about all the different witnesses to what took place in those days. They were able to write down this information because of what they saw. Noah and Moses and all of the Old Testament prophets, all the things they saw, they were eyewitnesses to, so they were able to document this information. Moses could document seeing this bush burning before him that would not burn up because he saw it. He could be a witness that could write about a sea parting for the people, the nation of Israel, to go through because he saw it. And so the disciples could also do the same in regards to what Jesus did in going to the cross, dying on the cross, raising from the dead, walking on the earth for 40 additional days, and then ascending up into the heavens because they saw it. So again, just because these things took place centuries ago doesn't eliminate the validity and the importance and the power of what they still mean today. So understand this, the Bible itself still has the same truth and the same power and the same meaning it did 2,000 years ago when these things were actually taking place. 3 and 4 and 5,000 years ago when these things were actually taking place here on the earth. So what I would say to you is study this word and study it with an open mind. Study it with a mind that says, let me see if what I am reading really speaks to my heart. Every opinion, every thought that I have is not based on what I believe. It's based on what the Word of God has shown me. What I believe and what I think matters doesn't matter. It's what the Word of God says. And that's the stance that I've taken from my life. And that's the stance that I challenge you to take for yours. Because if you're going to be an effective witness for God, if you're going to be an effective witness in how you live for God, then you must trust in what the witnesses of what God did wrote about and have shared with us to take and embrace in our hearts for generation and generation and generation and generation of now and still to come. So that's what I encourage you with for this week. Next week, we're going to start touching on the Godhead. And again, these are very simple teachings, but it's things that somehow, some way in the church we've lost sight of, because if we embrace all of the simple things that it takes to embrace to be a true disciple of the type of disciple that God has called us to be, in so many of the areas of our life where we're still battling and still struggling, we would see and witness and embrace the freedom from. So what I want to do throughout this series is encourage you to embrace what we're sharing and see how you can apply it to your life so that you can also live this entire free, emancipated lifestyle here on earth right now and be a powerful witness for God. Remember this, if you take lotion and put it on your body, it doesn't accomplish its task until you actually apply it to your skin. God bless you. Look forward to sharing another great word with you next week. Next week, our main topic of conversation will be, how can one God be three persons? God bless you.